All right.
Hello.
Hi.
Hi. How's it going?
Good. How are you?
All right. Miss your place. I really did.
We miss it in its normal state as well.
Yeah.
It's definitely still here, but it's not the same without everybody else.
Oh, yeah. Welcome everybody to Let's Get Consensual virtual happy hour this year. Normally, each year we do a bar crawl, and one of our partners is Quarters Arcade Bar. They've always been really supportive. This year, because of the current circumstances, we've kind of changed it online. So I hope you enjoy this. One of the reasons that I say Quarters always been very supportive, they've actually not only done the Let's Get Consensual Bar Crawl event with us, they were one of the first ones to do our Let's Get Consensual bar intervention training as well. This is a picture from last year. It was really fun. I don't know, do you want to speak to that, Katie or Michael?
Yeah, it was so awesome. It was a really great class. Definitely gave opportunity for our staff to think about situations that arise, ask questions to you, ask questions to each other, ask questions to us as owners. Just really open that dialogue and give people the tools to make this bar environment as safe as possible in this job, and then also a lot of people in the industry have other jobs. So a training at any bar is going to be a training for multiple bars, which is really cool.
Yeah, and something I was mentioning earlier is that we're actually looking to expand it this year and offer it to more places. And something that I really learned from the few times I've been able to do this with some local bars is that a lot of times the staff already has the knowledge, and this training kind of creates a space where they can bring their knowledge together and find solutions or troubleshoot things in their particular space. So it's really exciting because for the most part, I'm just kind of guiding the dialogue. I bring a framework, but the employees all bring their knowledge and experience, and it's really cool to see that. Sometimes some part of the staff doesn't know some of the issues that other part of the staff is dealing with. And that came up a couple of times where people were like, oh, I didn't think of that would happen to you, but that would make sense. Next time, let's do this, or next time that happens, let's do that. So it was
absolutely. And being there as owners and being able to back people up and have them say, like, do you back me up in this action, and be able to ask it in a space that's like a nice conversational space, I think is wonderful, because it makes the staff know that we have their back when they have to make those tough decisions on the fly to keep people safe.
Yeah, and I think that naturally, like probably employees of most companies are naturally want their environment to be good and safe, and they want to protect the culture that we've built. So it was just like a good opportunity to get together, actually say out loud the things that I think a lot of us already feel about protecting the space and protecting our customers. So yeah, it was a great opportunity for that.
Yeah, I'd recommend every and all bar, take advantage of these programs if you can, because we all deal with it. It's something that exists everywhere. It's not any single bar's problem, and no bar is excluded. So it's something that we always need to be thinking about. And so to have an actual training that we can require of our staff so that they feel like they have a really solid knowledge base is an incredible and wonderful thing.
Something I noticed as well was that it felt like it also re-emphasized the partnership between owners and staff on making the place safe. And that's something I got even after when I go back to these businesses. Some of the employees would be like, "Oh, that was so cool, thanks." It really kind of made us all much more aware of why we care about these things. So that was really, really cool to do. And so I don't think I've introduced you yet. So this is Katie and Michael, the owners of Quarters.
Hi.
A very cool downtown bar that I like to frequent during regular times, normal times. And my name is Jorge Barraza. I'm the prevention coordinator with Rape Recovery Center. I work with schools and businesses and just community partners to try to change some of the attitudes and norms that lead to the perpetration of sexual violence. It was really it's unfortunate how prevalent sexual violence occurs. People are surprised. In the state of Utah, it's 1 in 3 women will experience sexual violence at some point in their lifetime. But the good thing is that we can all be a part of the solution. So if you're interested in any kind of prevention programming, we're welcome to develop something, you know, for your business or your church or any kind of organization you have. That's kind of what happened with Let's Get Consensual. We just thought, like, you know, there's a space for this that's needed. There's a need for this. And so it's something that we kind of developed, and we're still working on developing as we go along. So yeah, just please contact us. You can look us up at raperecoverycenter.org. Also with us, we have Megan Asadian, our outreach coordinator at Rape Recovery Center. Do you want to introduce yourself a little bit?
Sure. Yeah, so my name is Megan. I'm the outreach coordinator. I work alongside Jorge. I do a lot of the planning for Sexual Assault Awareness Month. So for those of you who don't know, we are kind of almost in the middle of Sexual Assault Awareness Month, which annually falls in April. And the theme for this year is Our Voices. At least our own internal theme at the Rape Recovery Center is Our Voices. So really encouraging folks to be empowered to use their voice in some way to end sexual violence in their communities. And so if you're curious about our programming in general, please check out our website and also our Facebook and Instagram under Rape Recovery Center. We'll have all of our programming there. But yeah, that's pretty much all I have to say.
Awesome, thank you, Megan. And so typically on a regular Let's Get Consensual bar crawl, a lot of the businesses will dedicate a special drink that's consent based or that's themed around consent. This year, because of the circumstances, Michael had the great idea of, like, let's just work on, you know, some of the basics of some bar essentials, I guess, and things that we can do possibly at home, because we don't want to really encourage people to be going out unnecessarily, which really limited what I have. So I've got a real challenge for you. We'll see how your bartending skills stack up against my lack of preparation. And so, yeah, so go ahead. If you said you want to talk a little bit about, you know, some of the basics of bartending.
Yeah.
Or not bartending, but
I'll Michael mostly take over for this part. I'm the bar back.
okay.
Katie's
What exactly is a barback? That's my first question.
a barback. So a barback is, you know, support staff for the bartenders. Basically, their job is to prep and
Keep the bartender
prep
stocked.
before the rush, and then during the rush to keep bartenders stocked. So if I'm out of, if I, you know, I pour my last shot of tequila, the barback is the person that grabs another bottle of tequila, bergs it for me or their bartender. Basically, they keep the train on the tracks while everything is crazy, so that the bartenders, because, you know, from a business standpoint and from just like a customer service standpoint, like the point of a bartender is to make drinks as fast as possible for as many people as possible. This bar is a 300 capacity person capacity bar, so you know, on the weekends we have 4 people making cocktails and other beverages for 300 people. So those 4 people couldn't do that job efficiently without the support staff. So that's the job of a barback. So they do a lot of prep work. So like when you go to, especially not all bars, but most nicer bars or cocktail bars, they're gonna have fresh juice. So like this is lemon juice that we made today. All that stuff is done the day of. It's not like something that you buy at the store. You can do that. It's just less quality. But sorry, my dog's walking around. But yeah, that's the barbacks. They keep the wheels on the tracks, and they also do a lot of the prep work ahead of time.
Nice.
So most bars, including ours, like the barback is here setting up the bar and doing juicing and all the prep work before we even open the doors. So
okay, cool.
And then obviously they're kind of janitorial as well. They do the cleanup and all that stuff. So but yeah, I told y'all, or hopefully y'all have some simple syrup. That's that's the one ingredient that like a lot of cocktails have that are, it's really easy to make at home. It's just water and sugar, but it's in a lot of cocktails. It's a very important ingredient. So I'm just going to start with super basics. Basically, there are two categories of cocktails. Well, there's lots of categories of cocktails, but the major difference from a preparation standpoint is stirring and shaking. Stirred cocktails are cocktails that are all booze in general. The general rule is anything that is all booze, it can be stirred or should be stirred. Anything that has juice in it, or berries or muddled something, those things should be shaken. Basically, the reason why is that we've all had drinks where like you make yourself a rum and coke and you like stick the straw in and your first sip is just like all rum.
Yes.
And then later it's just coke, right? That's because liquids have different gravities, densities, and so getting the liquids to combine properly, you are going to need to shake something where those specific gravities of the different liquids is very different, right? So juice is pretty heavy, alcohol is pretty light. If you want those things to stay mixed and stay married, you have to shake them vigorously together. But if you're doing something that's mostly about the same viscosity, you can stir it, which is a gentler and more preferred way of combining things. So we'll start with stirred because it's easier to do at home. We'll just start with like the original cocktail, which is the old fashioned. So old-fashioned glass looks something like that. It's something that can fit ice and liquid and is easy to drink out of with your mouth and not a straw. So super simple ingredients. Your old-fashioned, and old-fashions aren't always whiskey. Old-fashions can be any base spirit. And there's different variations on different things, but we're gonna do the bourbon old-fashioned, like the original. You've got 3 ingredients. You have simple syrup. Actually, I'm gonna move the camera down a little bit.
So hold on, you can make an old-fashioned with different spirits. I've never had anything but whiskey.
Yes, tequila old-fashions are delicious. Gin old-fashions are delicious. Anything, because essentially the point of an old-fashioned and
this local product makes a great old-fashioned beehive barrel-aged gin. Really good.
Yeah, so maybe I can, let's just go for it. Yeah, let's do that. I don't have to look at my own face. That's great. So this is as simple as it gets, right? So there's 3 ingredients in an old-fashioned. There's the booze. This is Four Roses bourbon. Like anything in life, like your ingredients matter. You can make good food with shitty ingredients, but it's a lot easier to make good food with good ingredients. Especially in a spirit-forward drink that's stirred, you want good ingredients. So Four Roses is our bourbon. It's really good. And it's not that expensive, and it's widely available in Utah, so go get it. Angostura bitters is like the bitters. There we go, Angostura bitters. You can buy that in most grocery stores. If you go to like Caputo's, they have a wall of bitters that are all different types of flavors. Angostura is the most common. Peychaud's is the other one that if you want to build your home bar, you should have on hand. And then Regan's orange bitters. If you have those 3 bitters, you could probably make 90% of cocktails that call for bitters.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, just 3 ingredients in this cocktail. Ango, whiskey, sugar, right? And it's super simple. The old-fashioned is kind of, it's very much so a make it how you prefer it cocktail. I like bitter drinks, so I go a little heavy on the bitters and I go a little light on the sugar. So this is how you properly do a dash. So you want to turn upend. This has like a dasher top to it. So you want to upend the bottle completely and then just like shake it. That's a proper dash.
Oh.
And I'm gonna do 3 because why not? Some people like more. So I know some people do like 1 dash of Ango and they're old fashions. To each their own. Just mess with it at home and figure out what you like. I like 3 dashes of Ango personally, and I just use a 1/4 ounce of sugar in mine. These are jiggers. These are Japanese jiggers. They're widely available. You can get them at like Boozteak locally. Probably like Sur La Table probably has them. Jiggers are just liquid measuring devices. You can measure cocktails with anything, right? So if you have a shot glass at your house, you can fill a shot glass, and you can base everything based on proportions to the shot glass. So your shot glass could be 1.5 ounce shot glass, but as long as you keep the proportions right, you might make a bigger drink or a smaller drink, but it'll still be a good tasting drink. But these guys are clutch for your home if you want to get serious about making stuff at home. So, and then I'm going to do 2 ounces of whiskey because the DABC can't stop me. Normally in Utah, 1.5 ounces is the limit, but of a primary spirit. So you just so those 3 ingredients. I just did three dashes of Ango, 1/2 ounce of the simple syrup, and 2 ounces of 4 Roses. That's how I would make it at home. It's not how I would make it at the bar necessarily. This is how I like it. At the bar, we always try to make things the middle way, right? Try to please as many people as possible. So now I'm just stirring the cocktail. So this is called stirred down. This is when you are making the drink on the ice that it is served on. So I'm just gonna stir it in the glass. I would tell 99.9% of people at home, if you're making a stirred drink, just do it stirred down. Stirred up is a presentation thing, like when you have a martini and it comes up in a glass. It's a presentation thing. Stirring up is more difficult than stirring down, because if I understir this and then I drink it and it's too strong, I can stir it a little bit longer, right? Also, as I let this sit and as I drink it over time, it's going to get more diluted over time. So stirring down is, I tell people that making cocktails is cooking with ice, and you can undercook and you can overcook your cocktails. And people are more apt to undercook. So if you are going to undercook something and then you just leave it on ice, it might be a little tough at first, but as this dilutes more, it's going to be more palatable and easier to drink as you enjoy it. So, and I love that about stirred down drinks as well. Negronis are another very popular stirred down drink. That is, the point of a Negroni is that it does, not the point, but one of the nice things of the Negroni is that it changes over time, and then it goes from being a very bitter punch in the face to being very refreshing by the end of the drink. So,
quick question.
Yeah.
When it comes to how annoying is it for a bartender if you were to say, I want an extra 2 dashes of bitters on that?
Not annoying.
Okay.
Yeah, 100% not annoying. Please tell us if you have preferences. You know, our bartenders are here to make you a drink that you love. So
yeah,
definitely feel free to ask questions. Feel free to have them cater a drink to you, and they will advise you. Sometimes people ask for substitutions that we don't think will taste good, and we'll let you know. But if you really want it made that way, we'll make it however you want.
Yeah, I think one of the things we say here is no drink shaming, no kink shaming.
No. So I can order my Appletini without any.
Yeah.
You can order your Appletini. We don't have apple pucker, so you could order it. but we won't make it for you. But they could make you something, you know, similar that's on the sweeter side. It's citrusy. Let's do sweeter citrus. So we saw stirred down. Stirring up is a thing that's more advanced because, like I said, once you take it off the ice, it's done cooking. And if you undercooked it, then you messed up your cocktail, right? So that's stirring up's a little more difficult and technical. But stir down, when I make drinks at home, I stir them down. Even if I'm making a Manhattan or something that normally comes up, I just stir it down because I don't want to think that much and try that hard. That's your job when you're at work. When you're at home, it's not necessarily your job. Your job is just to make like something that tastes good that you can consume, right? That's palatable. Let's do a shaken drink. You said you had some ingredient. What are your ingredients, Jorge?
Oh boy. Okay. So
because we'll just do whatever you have.
Yeah. Okay. So so with this whole situation, my mother lives alone, so I decided to go ahead and quarantine with her to support her. And she's not a drinker, so I don't have all my usual bar full of tools and things I like to use. I have a little bit of, unfortunately, really bad vodka, low shelf, bottom shelf vodka. I did make some simple syrup. It's the first time I've done that. That was a lot easier than I thought it was.
Super easy, right?
Yeah,
it's super easy. And if you buy it at the store, it's hilariously expensive. So just make it yourself.
Right.
If you buy like a tiny bottle at the bar, it's like, or at the store, it's like $5 or $6, and it's literally just sugar and water. You can just make it and make a small amount, like just like you put up that glass there. You just make a small amount, and you can keep it in your fridge. And
it'll last
forever. A long time.
Yeah, and I was thinking like, oh my gosh, because I procrastinated on getting ready, and this was coming up, and it only took me a few minutes to whip it up.
Yeah, it's a great thing to have on hand if you want to, up your drink game at home, and it lasts a long time.
Yeah, and for those of you who didn't see the email where I described making simple syrup, super easy. Bring water, so an amount of water. So let's say it's 1 cup. Bring 1 cup of water to a simmer. That's Levi.
Yeah, sorry.
Bring 1 cup of water to a simmer. Add a cup of sugar, and then, or bring it to a simmer, take it off the heat, add a cup of sugar, stir it until it's combined. That's it. So it takes as long as it takes to simmer water is how long it takes to make simple syrup.
So I've got vodka. I've got the simple syrup I made. Like I said earlier, I made some tacos the other day, and I still have half a lime.
Okay.
I have this lemon juice. Some kind of lemon juice. A shot glass. One of these glasses. I have a martini glass, but I don't think I have anything to make something that fancy. And a make-do shaker for now.
Perfect. So before this started, I told him to grab that. If you don't have, so I'm using shakers. This is what professionals use. They are not that expensive, and they'll last you at home. They'll last you forever. At the bar, they last us like a year before they break. So at home, they will last you a very, very long time. There's a website called Cocktail Kingdom where you can buy really high-quality tools. These are Carico shakers. Those are the ones you want to get if you feel like investing, what, $20?
Yeah.
$20 into having shakers at your house. And you only, one pair, obviously at the bar we go through a bunch of them, but 1 pair will last you forever at home.
And Boustique too, right? Boustique, you can get those kind of things there too.
What? What'd you say?
Oh, at Boustique. All right.
Boustique has shakers, yes. There's lots of different kinds of shakers. Some of them are better than others. If you get the Carico brand, you can trust that they are good. The problem with some shakers is they don't seal very well, and then it's a mess. But Caricos seal really well because the metal is thin. You want to look for thin tins.
But yeah, a mason jar will work just fine for a home
cocktail. But at home,
right?
yeah, a mason jar is like perfect. So let's pretend this is my mason jar. You made simple syrup. You have store-bought lime or lemon juice.
Half a lime.
And you have half of a lime.
Yeah.
So half of a lime is going to yield you, a whole lime yields about 3/4 of an ounce, which is what you would want for this recipe. But you only have half of a lime. So let's do fresh juice and the store-bought juice. Let's just do them together.
Okay.
So I'm gonna say that you're gonna get a little less than a half out of your lime. So let's do a half of the lemon.
Yeah, you could squeeze just so you could do proportions, you could squeeze your lime into the shot glass and then do an equal amount of lemon.
Right, you can do that. Yeah, we'll do just like a lemon lime mix for this. And then you have your simple syrup. Where did I put it? There it is. I do 3/4 of that. So your basic sour formula, just so you know, it's not rocket science, is 2 parts booze, 1 part sugar or something sweet, 1 part something sour. That's like your traditional sour formula. So if we do 3/4 of this, 3/4 of the citrus mix, and to translate to you with a shot glass, you do a shot of the sugar, you do a shot of the citrus, and then do 2 shots of booze. And then you have probably more than 1 drink, but it's okay to make more than 1 drink at a time, you know?
So that's how much lime juice I got. So I just top it off with
I'd fill that with the lemon, the store-bought lemon juice.
Okay.
This is so fun.
Which obviously the store-bought is going to be less delicious, but you know, whatever. It's quarantine.
And it might be, yeah.
We're doing our best.
I would guess it's going to be a little extra acidic.
Yeah.
So you may need to adjust for, you know, having a little bit more sugar added in. But when you're at home, that's the thing is like, you can add a little bit more. It's not a big deal.
And then 1 part of the simple syrup?
Yeah. So, yeah, just fill that about to the same level as the citrus. Perfect. And then do 2 of those with your vodka. We're using Beehive vodka, another local organic vodka. Love Beehive. And because in general I like my stuff boozy, I'm gonna do another 1/2 ounce than I would normally do at the bar. So, do you have all that combined?
Yep, my mason jar.
Mason jar, you have ice?
No!
You don't have ice.
I know. So I'm going to undercook it.
So not having ice is kind of the worst.
No, it's like a 1 ingredient. I couldn't.
But what I would do, so ice the purpose of ice not only is to chill the drink, but it's also to dilute it.
Yeah. Well,
So if I were you and I didn't have ice, your drink's going to be a little warm, obviously, but I would add an ounce, a shot glass of water to it.
oh.
It'll make it a lot more palatable.
Yeah, and do cold water, and then you could stick it in the fridge and drink it later.
Yeah.
In a pinch. Emergency quarantine cocktails.
Get the shake cam. So I sealed the cocktail tins. They seal like this, so that there's all the space on one side and none of the space on the other side. And you just tap them together. And then the way I hold them is that 2 fingers on one tin, 2 fingers on the other tin, and then you just shake. So yeah, real shakes are important. Again, we're trying to combine. The point of shaking is combining 2 different density liquids together and keeping them together. The only way you're going to do that is by shaking the shit out of them, basically.
Now, I've heard about booze.
So
booze.
this doesn't work. You know, that's not shaking. That's not going to work.
For it.
You gotta.
Yeah.
And then, yeah, and the mason jar works perfect as a shaker. Again, like I said, before I drink that, I would definitely water it down a little bit, or else it's going to be too acidic. And then in the bar, we have fancy things like hawthorn strainers and julep strainers. But most of y'all have some sort of fine strainer at your house, right? And this is a great way. You can just strain with this too. Oh, I didn't move the camera. Dang it, you missed it.
It's all right. They get the point.
Here, I'll go high. Great. You can just strain it into that. Obviously, if you have a hawthorn strainer, use it. But at home, people usually have.
This is a hawthorn
That's a hawthorn
strainer.
strainer. But at home, people usually have some sort of
Fine mesh.
fine mesh. That's perfectly good to use. And then you have, this is nice. So if it was just lime juice, this would be a vodka Ricky. If it were just lemon juice, it'd be a vodka sour.
Or
So,
lemon drop.
or I guess a vodka sour is called lemon drop. Lemon drop. Put a sugar rim on it, that's a lemon drop. So you're somewhere in between a Ricky and a sour. If you add soda water on top, like you had LaCroix, that would even be more so like a Ricky. Or if it was lemon juice, it would be a vodka Collins. So even though you have like 3 very basic ingredients, there's several drinks that you can make from it by making small changes. So
I didn't pack any water with me, so I'm going to give it a sip without the water.
it's probably going to be too tart,
Probably be a little sour.
but
Actually, really sweet.
sweet.
Interesting.
Yeah.
But then you can add a little bit more citrus.
Yeah.
Yeah, and at home you can just kind of make it to taste. Doesn't have to be super exact. Like we have all of these, theories and ideas and formulas and experiments that we do to make sure when you get a drink at the bar, it's like as balanced and perfect as possible. But when you're at home, like, if I go out, when I get a martini, I expect it to be not on the rocks. But if I ask Michael to make me a martini at home and he gives me a drink on the rocks, then it's like totally acceptable. There's no rules.
I don't do that though.
He does.
When have I ever made you a martini on the rocks?
Done it.
I don't think I have.
Let's start quarreling online here.
And then the last thing is about, we'll just talk about like garnish real quick. Garnish a lot of times is just like for looks. The one thing I will say is like expressing citrus peel does change things quite a bit. Everyone knows that a lot of what you taste is via your smell. So when you see your bartenders expressing citrus oil on cocktails, it actually does matter. It's not just for show. This is, I'm gonna do a lemon twist on this. So this is a Y peeler. Probably a lot of people have these at their home, and then, a lemon. I will say, this is how people cut themselves in the bar.
Okay.
So,
Be careful.
be careful. You don't have to go slow, and you don't have to put that much pressure on the fruit. Yeah. It'll peel with little to no pressure. But so how I grab it is I put all of my fingies on one side of the lemon, and then this other side of the lemon is what I'm peeling, right? And then you just pull a little swath like that, and then if you give it a crack, if we were close up, you would see it. You actually might be able to see it still.
So colorful side out.
So colorful slide out, you're just gonna pinch the citrus and it's gonna release all of the oils from the citrus. Let's see if it shows up on camera. No.
Yeah, I saw
You saw a little bit. So then essentially the peel is like what I call bleeding, right? It's losing its oil. So you expressed a bunch of it. I can smell it, it's in the air. And then if you wipe it on the glass, that smell will stay on your glass. Wow. And then people put stuff in your drink and make it fancy and stuff that they want. I like what we do at Quarters is we call it crack and discard. So we'll express the oil, rub it on your glass, and then we throw away the trash because I don't like trash in my drink.
But I feel like being able to do that step of having that citrus swath and expressing it is a way that it'll really elevate your cocktails at home. And the great thing is you can do that to an entire lemon, and you can still use the lemon juice for cooking or for in cocktails, whatever you want. But it really is a way that makes drinks at home feel very special, like you got it at a bar.
Yeah, it definitely elevates it. Like I said, your sense of smell plays a huge part. Yeah. Any other questions?
No, I mean, thank you.
We can do more. I can go. This is very surface level. We can go deep.
Probably for a lot of people, it's deeper than they've ever heard about
cocktails. A lot, on just the flavoring and everything. That's really, it's cool. It's cool because I've always been impressed when I go to a fancy cocktail bar and I see them stirring. It's kind of cool to understand the reasoning behind why it all happens.
Yeah, and there's a lot of science that goes into like. A lot of times when I'm doing like a stirred up cocktail, if I have standard ice, which you do at like a cocktail bar, we have a Hoshizaki ice machine that puts out, nice cubes of ice. You get familiar with like how much, like when I was working at Bar X, I would put 7 cubes of ice in my stirred up cocktails. 4 of them would be full and 3 of them I would crack. Cracking them makes more surface area. So if you think about like molecules sitting in a glass right now, like, so this, as it's not being stirred, all the molecules of the liquid that are touching the ice are becoming cold, but the molecules a few molecules away aren't really becoming cold. And then stirring the point is to get all of the molecules touching the ice. Yeah.
Speaking of Bar X, both of you have experience working in bars, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I worked in, so I started my I guess career at Copper Onion. I was opening crew at Copper Onion. And then I worked at Plum Alley with them, and I worked at Copper Common with them, and then I worked at Bar X for 4 years before we did this. And then Katie was a liquor.
I was a liquor rep, so I, represented liquor brands in Utah and went to, bars all over the state, basically to, get them to buy that certain brand. And then I also was a bartender at Tinwell. And then we opened Quarters.
Wow. And how long is it? 2 years now?
We were closed for our 2-year anniversary.
Oh,
it was very sad.
Yeah, we had a bunch of stuff planned. We're actually opening a venue space inside Quarters.
The bar.
So that we were going to do our first show on our 2-year anniversary, and then everything fell apart.
And you two are married, right?
Yes.
So you're not breaking social isolation rules. You're just
we're allowed. We're allowed.
Together, so.
It's good. I don't want people to think that you're out there.
Yeah.
No, we live here.
Okay. Yeah, and unfortunately we had our Let's Get Consensual
they're so cute.
Coasters.
Yeah. So we'll figure out a way to get them out to the community and to you guys as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would definitely recommend that any bars who are thinking about doing some sort of thing with you guys, whether it's the training or one of these pub crawl events, definitely do it. It's a great way to communicate the greater message of what you're doing as an owner to keep people safe by participating in these kinds of things. So it's a fun event on the day, but to me, I really also get a lot of value out of partnering with you guys so people know how serious we are about this in our bar. And it's just a great way to communicate that.
And Salt Lake has a very unique bar culture, right? We don't have as many dance clubs. Like bars here are about socializing. It's about, getting together with people and
yeah, and that was always the idea of Quarters, was getting people a place where they could talk to, and meet someone and talk to someone and have a little bit of a, thing to start talking about. You can talk about a game before you have to start asking any personal questions or whatever. So it's a good place for like adults to meet each other. obviously that's why we're closed, because that's like
Yeah.
the bar. So,
Yeah.
but soon we'll be back.
And so I gotta say, for the most part, I do like to visit and frequent different bars and kind of get a vibe. Definitely find some that I feel more comfortable than others. But most people I find in Utah are pretty good at bars. I think the crowds are really respectful. I almost every time I go out, I meet someone, and it's interesting. We share stories. But unfortunately, there are some people who see bars as a place to maybe, be a little bit more aggressive than they need to be.
Absolutely.
So what do you do as a business, as a bar owner? I mean, what is your philosophy? How do you work with your staff?
Well, I think one of the best things that, or at least that we do, that I, would hopefully encourage other people in our community to do, is really back up your employees. Have them understand your standards, and that you have their back when you need to ask someone to leave because they're making someone uncomfortable, they're crossing those lines. Know that their job is not in jeopardy when they make those judgment calls. I think that's a big one, that if from talking to other people that work in bars, the big thing is I didn't want to say anything because I didn't want to get in trouble, even though I felt in my gut that it was wrong and that shouldn't have been going on, but I thought that I would get in trouble. So I think a big thing is to just we let our staff know that we have their back, and that when they make those tough decisions, we will back them up.
Well, the thing is too, that permeates out to your regulars, and then therefore, we can have, on Saturday night, we have 8 people working, but we're never outnumbered because we have such a good such a good community of regulars and stuff who also know our standards. And I think ownership communicating well with staff allows staff to communicate well with the customers, clientele base. And so people know what's acceptable and not acceptable.
And if people realize that if they're acting away, they don't get to come to their favorite bar anymore, then they stop acting away, or they don't get to come to their favorite bar anymore. So it's like a consequence of misbehaving.
Yeah, nurturing and that communication is so key, because that is another thing also. I think in Utah we're very considerate, for the most part. I really think people are mostly considerate, and sometimes it's not my business. I don't want to get involved in that. Unfortunately, people who commit sexual violence a lot of times, they rely on that, on people not saying something.
Yeah.
So when we have that open communication, it's easier. Unfortunately, I think there's a lot of times where people don't even realize what they're doing might be a little bit overly aggressive.
Yes, and especially the reason why I think this training is super, super important for bars is one of the side effects of alcohol specifically is that you have a dampened ability to understand social cues, that you maybe would have completely understood the social cue that you were getting if you hadn't been drinking, but then you're taking, a drug that can alter that ability to do that. So you also need to understand to be extra careful when you're drinking. The decision making that you're doing.
And I think people who sell alcohol and serve alcohol have a good understanding of oh, I've done things I wasn't proud of when I was drunk. Just because someone's being a bad actor doesn't mean that they are the worst person in the history of time. But it is
it can
be quick to correct behavior, and then see where it goes from there, because there's a lot of people that,
and they can learn a lesson rather than holding a grudge,
right. And I would say most people, if you're hey, don't,
cool.
Most people are
okay,
oh, sorry, and every once in a while, obviously, unfortunately, there's people who want to posture and be tough and all that stuff, and then then we kick people out of the bar for that kind of behavior. And you can read our Yelp reviews about how many people get mad at us for getting kicked out of quarters. But we don't care. I don't care.
We want our space to be safe, and if that means we ruffle a few feathers, then we're happy to do that, because our number one priority is to make the space safe for our employees and to make the space safe for the people who come to this bar.
So I guess sometimes, 1-star Yelp reviews are a good sign.
Absolutely. I do think that, like, if you were to look at a lot of our 1-star Yelp reviews,
It's
you
all
would be
people who
like,
got kicked out.
you're like, oh, that guy got kicked out. That guy got kicked out. And it's like,
Yeah.
we're quick to kick people out. I mean, it's not like we 86 people, but sometimes.
But we do if we need to.
Yeah, we definitely 86 people. But sometimes you get kicked out, and it's just like, dude, it's nothing personal.
Just go.
It's just tonight.
Yeah.
Like,
I mean,
you can come back and behave nicely next time. Well, there'll be zero problems. Like,
Yeah. Yeah. So it can be a good space to learn some things, to learn from a bartender that when you cross the line with that bartender, then they'll let you know, especially at quarters.
Yeah, I know, and that's great because I have been in bars where I'm close with the bartenders and something's happening and I can see them hesitant to step in. And so I think when we have that open communication, again, you feel more empowered, right?
Absolutely. And it is awkward and weird to call people out on their stuff, but it's something that you get used to and you get more comfortable with. So like being an active bystander becomes easier the more you do it. Because the first time I had to, call someone out on something while working in a customer service position, it was really intense and scary. But now you just call someone out because you know that your coworkers have your back, that you're making the right choice because you've done it before, and you know that it makes everybody safer and makes it a better environment.
Yeah, and go ahead, Michael.
And like I said, a lot of it isn't like the call out stage is like the beginning of the conversation.
Yeah.
It's not the end of the conversation.
Right.
So a lot of times I've had several times where I've pulled someone aside and been like, hey, this girl wants you to leave her alone. Like, you're hitting her up. I get it. I'm a dude. Like, whatever. You're hitting up this girl. I'm letting you know she's not into it. Like, just like be cool. And I've had that go both ways, right? So like, there sometimes when that goes the way of like, oh shit, like I thought she was interested. Cool, no worries. And I'm just like, yeah, dude, it's fine. You were just trying a thing. It wasn't working. I'm letting you know it wasn't working. That's it. Yeah. And then,
But I think it's just important to be able to have those conversations, especially in a bar setting, to feel comfortable saying, I'm going to pull this person aside and be like, hey, you're stepping out of line. And then, like Michael said, that's the beginning of the conversation that could end there where they're totally fine and they just made a mistake, or it could become clear that it's more than a mistake and they were doing something, hurtful.
Yeah, and something as well is that, we actually try to be less gendered when it comes to dealing with sexual violence issues, and consent and things like that, because it does go both ways. But the reality is that gender does play something into this, right? I know for bars, I see it beneficial as well, because when women feel safe in a space, that's where they'll gravitate to, and that tends to bring men. So it's not always the other way. I've had people who are like, oh, I won't go to that bar. That bar is too uncomfortable for me. I'm like, oh, I get it. I don't think about it because I'm fine there, but she was like, that's not my favorite place. Right. And I hadn't even noticed that. So
and we strive to be one of those places where someone says, this is a place I go because I feel safe there. That's always my goal.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and that's just like I said, that's communicating with your staff. Your staff communicates with the clientele, and regulars become your advocates regardless of what your culture is.
Yeah.
And so if you build good culture, like your regulars, the people who are going to gravitate to your culture are going to also defend it.
Who agree with it.
Yeah, they're going to defend it. So.
Yeah.
And interesting thing too, because we're talking about consent also, and when it comes to consent in Utah, legally you can't give consent if you're under the influence of alcohol or drugs, right? But people, drink and have sex, or are sexually active. One of the common questions we get when we do presentations in college campuses is like, what if both people are drunk? And Megan, would you like to speak to that? She's fielded this question a million times more than me.
I'll kind of jump in here, and I will also point out, I get that question way more in high schools, believe it or not. I think high schoolers just generally are more curious. and like college students are also curious, but like I guess have a little bit more experience navigating those tough waters. And it's always hard to answer that question, to be honest, especially in high schools, because my answer for high schoolers is so different than college age folks. But I think the whole thing is, especially what I tell college age folks is, you know, it happens, right? Like folks will feel comfortable drinking and then having sex. And, you know, I'm not gonna like say like, you can't do this, like that's wrong, and like wag my finger at them. But my whole thing is like, understand the consequences of engaging in both. Like there are legal repercussions there. And that's kind of the more safe answer I give my high school students. Because I think like it's important, you know, I want people, especially if they feel comfortable like with drinking and things like that and socializing, going to bars and doing things like that. I want folks to feel comfortable and feel like they can do those things because that's amazing and it should be fun. But I also, more importantly, I want folks to feel safe and to be aware of other people's safety as well. And so that's kind of how I navigate those tricky waters. But yeah, always being aware that there are legal repercussions for engaging in both of those, and staying safe out there.
And I think, you know, a big thing too is that communication, right? When let's be very specific, be verbal. I champion being verbal when it comes to consent. And this is almost any presentation I give, this always comes up because I really think we need to change this culture of, anytime I ask, why don't you verbally ask for consent in a workshop or a class, whether it's high school students or adults? And when we're talking middle schoolers or high school students, we talk about kissing and holding hands and hugging. We're not talking about sex. But why don't you ask for permission or consent before you kiss a person, right? And the common answer, adults or kids, is like, oh, that's weird. It kills the moment. And I think the reason that happens is because we don't see that model in our media, right? You don't see, I always say like in movies or TV, the music swells, you know, the man goes in for the kiss, she resists, but then she gives in and she enjoys it. I'm like, what are we doing? We're actually, you know, teaching people that if you just persist.
I also think this is like something that I thought a lot about, because we bring that scenario up a lot, especially with like our younger like high school or sometimes junior high. It's like, if you are like at the end of a date and you really want to kiss this person, do you just go for it or do you ask? And so like a lot of folks will say like, just go for it. You don't want to ruin like the mood. And then like our follow-up question is like, what if that person didn't actually want to be kissed? Like,
doesn't that ruin the mood?
Yeah, exactly.
It's like, listen, a first kiss is going to be freaking awkward. You might as well make sure it's consensual and awkward. Like, just go for it.
Yeah, exactly. And then it just becomes this conversation too of like, well, if I have to ask every time, isn't that weird? And, you know, one of the things that we like to kind of go into when it comes to consent, like kind of, you know, you have to practice it in a relationship. There's not always one way to practice consent. There's verbal, nonverbal cues, but especially when you're just starting to know somebody, like if you're meeting them in a bar, you don't really know, right, what their like cues
what their cues are.
Exactly, right? Even if somebody is like verbally giving consent, but they look uncomfortable non-verbally, right? Like not a lot of folks really look out for that type of thing. And so that's something that we try to teach folks at a really young age. That's super important. But like for folks who are like, do I have to ask for consent for every single thing? You know, not necessarily, but you have to understand how to practice consent throughout your relationship with somebody so that you know that they're consenting to what you want to do. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah, and I've always thought that like consent should be reframed as like foreplay, you know?
Yeah.
Yes.
I love that.
Especially with brand new partners, if you're like negotiating like what someone's into or what they're not into, like that all should be foreplay. That's what I should be hearing at the bar, you know.
You don't want to hear all those conversations, but
For sure. Yeah, for sure. And we actually like talk about that, especially like in our college age presentations, people will say, I love when my partner asks for consent for this specific thing. Can't really get into those conversations in high school.
Yeah.
We always try to kind of skirt around it. We're always like, isn't it nice when somebody asks for, isn't it romantic? I don't know. But yeah, I think that also translates to the bar scene. And kind of when Jorge was talking about, there's this like gendered difference of experience, just even thinking of my own experience as a woman going into bars. And yeah, it's kind of a nightmare sometimes. But I will also say this genuinely, I wanted to make sure I said this. Quarters was probably one of the first bars I ever went to when I went out in Salt Lake. I am fairly new to Salt Lake, and I always have an amazing experience at Quarters. If you never have
I love that.
any like weird, creepy experiences, and I always feel super safe at Quarters, which is one of the reasons why it's like one of the first places I go to when I go out.
Yeah, and I think the creepy stuff happens everywhere, all the time. But like I said, like truly, like the whole staff has your back, and they have your back because we have their back. And then like we have genuinely such a good, awesome base of regulars who, even if they don't feel comfortable with intervening, I've seen them come grab a bartender, come grab staff. They know that like we'd much rather stop making drinks for a second to handle something than to let some weird happen.
I mean, the thing is, like, stuff like that's going to happen in any bar. No one's excluded from it, but it's about how the staff reacts and how the regulars react. That shows what the culture of the bar is and what is important to the bar. And if making that drink and not intervening is more important, then I would argue that you have your priorities in the wrong spot.
Totally. Yeah.
And you know what? When you create that culture in a bar, your regulars are going to be people who buy into that culture, obviously.
Yeah, and they're going to take it to other bars.
Exactly, because I have been in bars where there's very problematic regulars until I tell them where I work at, and then they stop telling me all the dirty jokes I don't really want to hear, or harassing the bar staff with dirty jokes. So, I've actually had that. I actually had a bartender once say like, "Oh yeah, you tell that to Jorge here. You know where he works at?" And the guy's like, "What?" Like, "I work at Rape Recovery Center." And he went quiet, and that's it. I haven't heard him tell a joke since then.
That's beautiful. The sound of silence can be music to your ears, you know? Some people just need to shut up.
Yeah, exactly. Well, awesome. We're almost out of time here, but thank you again so much for doing this. It's been fun. And we look forward. I can't wait to go back and play.
We miss you.
Yeah. I mean, we have that vintage Asteroids machine. Man, that's where I plug in all my quarters.
Still there. I promise you, it'll be there when you come back.
Yeah. Okay. Well, thank you, everybody, for joining us. Thank you, Megan. Thank you, Michael and Katie and Quarters, for all your support. Here's my bitter drink, sour drink. And have a good day, and talk to you soon.
Awesome. Bye.
Bye. Thanks, guys.